Welcome back to the Voices of Change podcast. This is Tex Wambui here. The co-host, Gabriel Martinez, currently not available today because he has other obligations. But we'll be back with more episodes where me and him will be on there together, and our upcoming series, the Historical Figures series, where we'll talk about different histories from different people. So be on the lookout for that. But I want to say welcome back to the show today. Today I'm joined by someone who has dedicated his life and his career to education, leadership, and global collaboration. Traveled the world. We connected when we were in D.C. together. He lived in Kentucky. He lived in Uruguay, and is now going to Bradford. And Frank is a Chevening, I don't know how to say it correctly, scholar, and he's a language facilitator, a project management professional who's now building something new, an NGO focused on advancing Sustainable Development Goal 4, quality education for all. So today we're just going to talk about the purpose behind his initiative, kind of what his goals are and the ambitions behind it, the challenges, opportunities it faces, and why education can be the game changer for young people, especially those from underprivileged backgrounds. So Frank, man, welcome in. Let them know your full name because I ain't going to mess that up again. So say it correctly for the audience out there. And I'm excited to engage in this conversation with you and, maybe go back and forth a little bit, maybe debate if we can. But welcome, Frank. Welcome, man. What's up, man?
Thank you. Yeah, so call me Frank, but my full name is Frank Kouassi. I think it doesn't actually matter. So the most important thing here is to know what we can actually bring to the table, how we can contribute to our different communities, and what are the different strategies that we have right now, to contribute to those different communities. Like I used to say, it's always a pleasure having you. It's not actually our first time. This is the second time that we have in this podcast. And of course, tonight we're going to be discussing something different. But once again, always a pleasure having you around, brother.
Yes, sir, Frank, man. So let's get started, man. What has inspired you to start this NGO? You hit me up and you was like, yo, I'm doing this thing. Let's talk about it on the pod. And I was like, say less, man. Let's do it. So how does your own journey working across education, project management, international exchange connect with this mission? What has inspired you? And, was there a personal story or experience that really cemented for you that education has to be your focus?
I would say my whole life has been around education, professionally speaking, educationally speaking. Everything that I've been doing has always been around education. The different NGOs that I've been working for, yet here in the UK, like in the US or in Africa, all the places that I've been to, all the people I've been, engaging with, everything has been around education because I'm very invested in community engagement and everything that goes along with that. And yeah, I was recently working on my dissertation and I was doing some research about education in Africa as a whole, also the third world. And then I realized that there was a huge gap, in terms of education for young people, mainly when it comes to female and male. And then I was like, well, I could probably, based on my skills, my, and everything that I've been learning, could to some extent, bring something, to the table. I could to some extent also contribute to those communities. And one of the criterion of the program I'm taking right now, the Chevening Scholarship, is that once you're done, you need to, give back to your community. You need to provide access to something, maybe education. So we have like 17 SDG goals. So you may even choose one of them, not necessarily about SDGs, but you can choose one of them and work on it and ensure that you promote it in your country. So it's like you need to give back to your community to some extent. And I was like, well, since I've been working with NGOs, I know, there are some issues that people are facing in Ivory Coast, my home country, but also in some other African countries. And I was like, why not contributing to those people? Why not doing it through education, through SDG 4, which is like, that actually aims to providing equal education for all, regardless, of their gender, religious, let's say, orientation and everything that goes along with that. So this is it. I was like, yeah, it's kind of interesting because I got a chance to work, like I mentioned it earlier. I got a chance to work with some international NGOs whose objective is actually to promote education. And then, like I said, all the things that I've been doing so far have all been around education. So like I'm very equipped when it comes to education, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to, some specific topics related to education. I'm kind of more equipped and to contribute to people's life when it comes to this area. That's why I actually decided to go through this.
Wow, man, that's very inspiring, and really commend you on this because yes, I do believe that education is a tool to the growth of an individual and to their own, I would say, probably facilitation within their community, because knowledge is power and accessibility to that aspect of things is one of the most important things. And I will say, like, in my experience in my life, education has been at the forefront of things, not technically like, the traditional form of education that people say about going to school and things, but about the aspect of, being curious about something and wanting to learn more about it to see how it can give you something that you can propel yourself with and for. So for you, like, I have a personal story that I'll share this, but I want to ask you this question. Like, was there a personal story or experience that really cemented for you that education had to be kind of your focus? And why is that something that you were really, really passionate about?
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that there's no specific personal experience related to education that actually triggered my, let's say, motivation towards education. It's all about the things that I've been reading, even recently. I think I mentioned it like a couple of minutes ago. I was working on my dissertation, for instance, and then I came across some data, from UNICEF talking about how underprivileged some people in Africa as a whole are. And if they even mentioned my country as a young person and a leader, I was like, well, how can we actually solve this problem? Because one thing is to find the problem, and the most important thing actually is to, come up with solutions to solve those problems. And then I'm actually thankful, to those international organizations talking about UNICEF that actually ensure that everything's given when it comes to data, when it comes to like updated stuff, to know more about what's going on in your country. And here, me being here and understanding all those things, I was like, yeah, it's kind of very interesting for me to contribute to that, to know exactly what's going on, what's not working, and based on my personal experience, how I can actually help my community. So it's like the recent one, I can even read it from my iPad. It's like, give me a second. So here it goes, like, according to the UNICEF Institute of Statistics, the primary school completion rate was at 68% in 2022 for girls and 69% for boys. However, the completion rates for lower secondary education reveal a drop off with 55.5% for girls and 60.2% for boys. So that means that of course, we're talking about education for all, but when it comes to these two genders, I don't know, boys are always, encouraged to go to school, while girls are kind of, prevented from going to school. And this is something that I feel like it's not fair. We need to find a solution to this. And that's why I actually came up with this idea of creating an NGO that promotes SDG 4, ensuring that they all have equal rights and equal opportunities to go to school. And talking about the NGO, maybe you're going to ask me questions about that later on, but talking about that, we are actually working on, of course, we're talking about education as a whole, but we have 5 specific things that we are trying to cover. The first thing is leadership. We want to ensure that, they have leadership skills, that they understand what leadership actually is all about. We also tackle self-confidence. Most of the time, they may have, skills, they may be talented, but when it comes to making the bold decision or taking the leap, to prove to the world what they are capable of, some of the time they miss out on many opportunities because they are afraid of showing up or saying what they have to say. So we are trying to promote self-confidence within young people. The third one is community engagement. Like I said, most of the things that I've been doing so far have been around community engagement, and the skills, the network that I have today, that I built all those things through, community engagement. And I feel like if people know the importance of it and what they can learn and have from it, that will probably change something, or they're going to actually be able to, move to the next level, of the life. The fourth one is around patriotism. It's all about loving your country, understanding your country, and knowing what you can contribute to your country. And the last one is sexuality. Most of the time, and even I went through some, research and some articles, and I realized that most of the time, people, mainly girls, around lower secondary school or upper secondary education, they are pregnant already. So it's like they have this difficulty of managing their sexuality because they may not understanding how things actually work. And it is kind of a taboo in Africa and in my country, personally speaking. We need to teach them, because they actually don't have the chance to have a conversation, sexual conversation with their parents. Be it, the mother or the father. It's kind of difficult for them to have such a conversation with their parents. And we are coming like a kind of platform where we're going to share some skills with them, where we're going to share everything related to how to go about sexuality and how to make their choices when it comes to the different tools or items that they can use when it comes to sexuality. So we want to ensure that they understand these five pillars, and then we help them out with that.
Wow, that's awesome. What's the name of the NGO?
So it's a French name, Cap Aveni. So Cap, that means toward. Okay, toward. So Aveni means future. So toward the future. So Cap Aveni, that means toward the future.
That's awesome, man. Cap Aveni. Okay, got my French going. So who do you see as the first communities or groups you want to really have an impact on? And why is that the specific kind of like groups of people and communities that you want to be associated with? And then in regards to that is I see that you're focusing on sustainable development goals, right? So education is very important, but sometimes education is a benchmark for certain things. So just I guess the kind of challenge here is are you looking to do things in the education field solely, or are you trying to also kind of change the dynamic of how education is available and provided to people? Because why would people be wanting to have education when they don't even have access to electricity or connectivity to the world? Because nowadays things are all connected, right? Which appeals to another sustainable development goals. So should there also be kind of are you looking to also kind of bridge that aspect of things to, knowing the communities that you're representing or the communities that you want to have an impact on, but also showing them the ways of accessibility to education in this modern day of age does also require accessibility to having, power, electricity, resources, technology, because, things have always revolutionized and things are always constantly changing. So, that's just kind of what I wanted you to just kind of touch upon about that.
All right. That's a huge question. And really, this is actually a very interesting question. The first thing, talking about the audience, so people we are actually targeting, which we're targeting young professionals. First of all, because some of them are actually, I've been traveling around the I don't want to say the globe, but around the world. I've been visiting different continents, and most of the time through scholarships, for instance, you see. So there are some young professionals who are in my country, for instance, who don't have access to, those international opportunities. And what we are trying to do is we are combining education and professional opportunities. So what we're trying to do is we provide them with international opportunities through scholarships or, conferences, that we have access to. We walk them through the process of application and ensure that they are selected depending on their skills and competencies and what the objectives or projects for the community or for the country are. The second one is about the second audience that we are targeting are university students and also high school students. So high school students, because we believe that if we can instill the 5 pillars that I mentioned: leadership, self-confidence, community engagement, patriotism, and sexuality, if we can instill those things, those knowledge and skills in those people, they're going to be able to grow with it. And then, they're going to actually help them a lot, even in their university lives. And as for the university students, we believe that they are already there. They know how the world works. But once again, they lack some resources, and we want to ensure that they have those resources. And when it comes to, networking, when it comes to pitching a project or something like this. So we want to ensure that they have access to a lot of stuff that can help them be bold enough when it comes to targeting new stuff or even adventuring themselves in the professional world. Now, talking about education and other sectors. Of course, our idea here is not setting a kind of competition between education and the other sectors. You mentioned, for instance, electricity, the other thing. We believe that we cannot solve all the problems at once. That's impossible. So what we're trying to do is we, for instance, suppose that we target or we focus on, let's say, education, ensuring that the 5 skills or the 5 pillars that I mentioned are properly working, and other people are also targeting the electricity part, or I don't know, water, or SDG 6, for instance, sanitation and hygiene and drinking water. So it's we are trying to do something, and we encourage other people to also contribute to some stuff. And then collaborating going to be very important, because if we, for instance, we are working toward education, ensuring that everybody has access to education, and somebody else, with his NGO or organization also working on SDG 6, together we can contribute to something. It's we are contributing to our society through education. They're also contributing to the society through sanitation, hygiene, and drinking water. So it's all about working hand in hand in synergy and ensuring that we are all, contributing to something to our different communities. So it's it's not a kind of competition. We're just trying to ensure that, we all, have objectives, and then we reach those or achieve those objectives together.
Okay. That's I love that aspect of things, because I do believe, we resonate on this together about the aspect of education as of importance, not just to anybody, but just for communities and society. But let's kind of dive into a little bit of the aspect where you mentioned about international opportunities, right? Because maybe we might disagree on this part of things, but one thing that I really think, I don't see the point of you going outside to gain information about your place to try to come and help your place. Why don't you gain the information where that specific location is? So I guess this as a challenging aspect is, why should we focus on the international collaboration rather than why don't we just focus on first building the location of where the home and the community you want to have the impact on first, rather than outsourcing first, focusing on resource mobilization within what you have available. And if that's limited, then that's where the aspect of the collaboration globally comes into place. Because I guess from my understanding of history, it's there's the aspect of dependency theory, as you would say, right? Why I feel like when you have people leaving your country to go outside of it to go get an education, and then hoping that they're gonna come back and provide the knowledge that they've gained to help you out, sometimes it's actually now limiting you more, because you're not actually utilizing what you have there. Because, for example, Nigeria, something I saw, maybe I might be wrong on this, but they have a high amount of doctors outside of the countries, but they have a doctor shortage. Why is that a problem? Why can't we make now in Nigeria themselves to have access to good education for being a doctor, and then those people being in that area? So just from that kind of analogy and using that, you could have chosen to work on climate, health, entrepreneurship, Why did education speak to you the most?
Well, this is very interesting. I know where you're coming from, and why is it that we don't start from where we are and we want to travel abroad, to have the knowledge and then come back, and even to the case of Nigerian doctors, for instance. This is actually, for me, I believe that this is, and even considering my case, why is it that I decided to go abroad to learn stuff and then go back home and help or give back to my community. And this is actually because of three main things. The first one is the system. The system does not actually allow you, to do some number of things, when you are in your own country. So taking the case of Nigerian, for instance, maybe the system doesn't allow them, they may have the degrees and everything that goes along with that, but the system doesn't create the opportunity for them to have it. And maybe most of the time, most of them want to work, as, civil servants. So they want to work, for the government and everything. And then they know that, they don't have a lot of, opportunities in this case. Or maybe they want to get into, creating their own businesses and everything. And then they don't have the resources to do that. So the only option they have is to go abroad, come to the UK, go to Canada, go to the US or Australia, and then to provide their services. So the system, first of all, maybe doesn't, create the context for them to actually be able to contribute to the community. This is the first thing. The second thing is lack of resources. Because, when I remember the last time I went to a library in Ivory Coast, I'm not just, anyways, let me put it this way. The last time I went to a library in Ivory Coast, the books are not updated, for instance, and we don't have access to online books. So it's like, but here, for instance, you can even stay like in your room and then have access to many stuff, you see? So like, in terms of Wi-Fi, the network is not, stable. So you don't have access to online stuff. So you are limited. You don't have resources. And you believe that going to another country, coming to the UK, for instance, going to the US or Canada and to learn and to have access to all these resources is going to give you, much better opportunities compared to you staying in your country and using the resources that are available there. This is the second thing. The third one is trust. I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and she's from Nigeria, and she was like, see, you can have all the degrees in Nigeria, in my country, but if you don't travel abroad, if you don't go abroad, to have some experience there, nothing ain't gonna work. It's like, whatever you say, people ain't gonna trust you. But if you go abroad for maybe a certain period of time, maybe a year or 2 or 3, and then you have the lobbying around it, when you come back, whatever you say, people, they're all going to accept that, So it's like, they believe that if you travel abroad and you come back, you are more legit, compared to someone who didn't actually, get out of the country. So these are the three reasons why I'm like, well, it's important to travel and then learn more and then contribute to your community. You can even stay abroad and contribute, but it's much better, to stay there and to leave the condition and see actually how people are suffering, there, or the things that people are going through on a day-to-day basis. And then you can provide, some solution to it. And then another thing is that traveling abroad and gonna actually give you the chance to expand your network. You, for instance, I met you in DC, right? I wouldn't miss you. I would never I was not even expecting you, right? But now,
yeah, and that was a great time too. We had a great time.
Exactly. So suppose that I was not. Of course, I was in the US back then, and you were in Texas, I guess. And I was.
No, I was never in Texas. What you talking about, man?
So where were you again?
I was at. Where was I? We were in DC for sure. We were in DC together.
Oh, okay. So,
but I was I think I was based out of Atlanta at that time, and also based out of California at that time.
Exactly, actually that. So you were there, for instance. I was in Lexington, Kentucky, for instance, right? And I had to apply for outdoor staff before I knew about you. So these are things that you can build through networking and through international stuff. And then now I know you. Suppose that I have something that maybe gonna be, I don't know, profitable or important to you. I can just share those things with you. And I think it goes both ways. If you have something related to maybe SG4 or 6 or something related to my field of study or my professional stuff, you can just tell me that, okay, I have this, I have that. So it's all about networking. It's all about creating, expanding your network. And I believe that if I were in Ivory Coast, I wouldn't be able to talk to you. I wouldn't even know you and then create you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Italy, for instance. We didn't have that experience of, the Italian stuff, So it's like, it's all about this.
Yo, okay? you didn't have to talk about it.
I mean, it's also part of it. It's also part of it. And then the person was like, if Tex, thought that you and we could do this, we could do that. That's probably because, he believes in you. You see, so it's all about this. It's all about trust. It's all about you expanding your network. It's all about you, having all these experiences and knowledge that you can actually have from abroad and go back home and then contribute to it. I would say that it's kind of selfish or being selfish when you have all these, resources, skills, competences, and you prefer staying maybe somewhere else and then see your community being in a very difficult and complicated, situation. It's much better and very interesting and even wise taking the resources, taking the knowledge, taking the skills, the network and everything that goes along with that, and then go back home and then contribute to your community. So this is it.
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say that's funny that you brought about the whole thing and about Italy, and I hope you had a good time in Albania or wherever it was.
Stop that. That was just a bracket. Let's close the bracket.
Oh, that's funny as hell. You say that. Hopefully, whoever, for our listeners and viewers out there, that whenever they see this,
I hope you're gonna see it.
Oh Lord, not you. You didn't have to. No, Lord. Anyways, I really do resonate with what you're saying because it really does play an important factor on the aspect of exposure is very, very important. Exposure is a way of also gaining new knowledge, gaining new networks, collaboration efforts and purposes. But I still, I would still say one of the most important things that always has to be remembered is charity starts at home. If you cannot be able to utilize what you have at home first, then that's already a problem, because when you start to outsource to other areas, sometimes it does create a difficulty and it creates other problems that come with it. So I would probably just say one of the biggest things that I would say is important also is utilizing the resources you have available to you. Even though they're not that much, they can still be utilized in a form of way or where we can grow together rather than going outside of who doesn't know what you really want. All they can hear is just what you say and what you tell them of what you need and want. So I really do commend on the aspect of being internationally resourcely mobilized and connecting that. But I still do think it's very important to really fine tune to that specific community. Ivory Coast, letting them know like, hey, let's start at home first. If it's not working out here, then maybe we can go and try to outsource. But first, let's start here. And then I think that's just my opinion on that.
Sure.
Apart from that, I'm really, really, it's very compelling. I'm really excited about what it is that you got going on and got planned, because I do see the vision you have. And I guess as we come here on the end and then wrap up on this, for people listening and people watching this, how can they support your work or get involved with?
All right. So before even tackling this question, let's go back to what you said quickly. Of course, we'll have to have a starting point. And I have my own starting point. I started in Ivory Coast. I started working as a program manager with UNICEF. I started working as a project manager with Image Lead. I started as a project manager with Europort. See, so it's like I started home, and I was like, well, okay, so I have I know that I'm limited in terms of resources, and then of course, if you want to go, far in this career or in this situation or environment, you need to have this. I could stay home and have my master's in project management, but I was like, well, okay, they're gonna be like the same people, same environment, and nothing new. Traveling to another country, and study project management, for instance, they're gonna be kind of like mix. They have their own experience. I have my own experience. So it's like I'm going to learn from them. They're going to learn from me. And then we're going to create a kind of, bond that together we can actually cherish. And then they're going to be kind of like, another networking, opportunity. So we all have our starting points. Maybe it happens that some people travel, like you said, maybe travel to other places. And then unfortunately, they don't know what they want or why they are traveling or what they are traveling for. And it happens. And it's actually sad because before doing something, you just have to have, objectives and goals. You need to ensure that whatever you are doing or whatever you are saying, you have something that actually drives you. Because if you don't have those things, how will people know that you're doing this? Today, for instance, if you ask me to tell you more about what I did in Ivory Coast, and if you want to reach out to the people I work with, it's easy because, I left something there before coming. So it's all about knowing what you want, and then based on that, find the different opportunities that come along with that. Now, how can people contribute to it? First of all, we are starting. Currently, we are working on everything. I have my team home, so like there are 5 of us actually. So me being the founder, and then other people, like 4 people helping me with the program. So what we're doing currently, we don't actually need much. We just need partnership staff. We need to ensure that we have partners maybe in the US or in Africa, because I'm even planning to once I get in Abidjan in December, I'm planning to go to Nigeria, to Senegal, to Niger and Chad, to those places, to work with people. I'm trying to create some partnership opportunities with those people, so that in case we have our programs or we have activities, we can just invite them. They're going to share their own experience with us when it comes to the 5 pillars that I mentioned: leadership, self-confidence, patriotism, community engagement, and sexual orientation. Sexual life or sexuality. So it's like we want to create partnerships. So this is the thing that we are actually looking for. We're looking for partners. We're looking for, not for financially speaking, of course, maybe this is gonna come later, but we are just starting the project. So now we are looking for people who are actually in the same domain, discussing SDG4, promoting SDG4. They may have some resources that we may not have. So it's like we're looking for people who are actually going to be able to provide us with some knowledge, some skills, some competencies. Of course, we think we are equipped, but we never say never. Right? We don't stop learning. I believe that they may know something that I don't know, or my team doesn't know. So it's much important for us to actually partner with those people and ensure that we work together, because we have the same goal. Actually, this is all about promoting SDG4, ensuring that by 2030, everything's okay. So this is it. Like, we're ensuring that we're looking for partners in this regard.
Wow, Frank. Well, really amazed and excited about this, and really appreciate the fact that you're being a voice of change, not just for yourself, but for where you come from and the communities that you represent, and from your exposure and experiences and utilizing it to the best of your ability. So Frank, man, I just want to say thank you for sharing your vision, your passion. Education is one of the most powerful tools we have for change, and it's inspiring to hear how you're putting that belief into action. I just wish you all the best with your NGO and with all the projects and partnerships. We've already got established our own partnership with the Voices of Change platform, with what we're doing in Mongol wetland restoration and podcasting and other avenues. We actually just dropped a new foundation with the aspect of our organization. It's got Karibu Pamoja Foundation, so we'll be utilizing that as a way to benefit people. So that's a resource for you have available to you. And I hope today's conversation sparks new support and ideas for your journey. And for everybody out there listening, really appreciate y'all for tuning in today. Check us out on the Alive Podcast Network. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, or like on this video, and follow us on social media at Sustain the Story and all other platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and everything like that. But apart from that, I just want to say to you, Frank, man, really looking forward to seeing what the next steps are, and having you back on here again, which we definitely will. And let's keep that Italy Albania story out the way for next time, unless there's new developments that comes with it.
Oh yeah, unless there's development. Unless there's
unless there's new developments, I'll be looking forward to getting my trip planned and everything. But apart from that, we'll stay in touch, man, and keep going up. So thanks again for joining us. And we here at the Voices of Change. I'm Tex Wambui here, host. My co-host Gabriel Martin is not here, but he'll be back, and we look forward to having more conversations like this. So we are the Voices of Change, and thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me, and have a good day.